This is Dr. Jihan, and this is Raising Resilient Minds podcast. I'm so excited today to have my friend Tisha Clay with us, who is going to be sharing a little bit about education, test anxiety, etc. Actually, she has so many different hats. I'm going to allow her to kind of give you a description of all of them. But one of the things that, I really admire is that she actually has a tutoring company in which she works one-on-one with children, helping them to actually build that increased resilience in the classroom. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I wanted her here today. So Tisha, if you don't mind, just kind of tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Jihan. So as she said, I'm Tisha Clay. I am a 20-year educator. But before that, I am a wife. I am a mother. I have worked in education for 20 plus years. I am a new author, and I am also an entrepreneur. So yes, I do wear many hats. So as an entrepreneur, I have a learning center, a tutoring center. It's called Clay Academics. We work with students in grades kindergarten through 8th grade. As an educator, I have actually worked with students from kindergarten through 12th grade and even college. And so I have a vast variety of experience. And then as a newly published author, I have a new book out called Braden, the Big Test, which talks a little bit about test anxiety and is told through a children's perspective. And so using all of my experience as an educator, working as a teacher for many years in Texas, and then I worked for a national learning center here in Oklahoma. I ran several different learning centers here, tutoring centers. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, I decided to start my own learning center. And the reason I did that is because I really wanted to provide access to our students and our families that may not be able to afford traditional tutoring. The national center I worked for was very expensive, and I was turning away a lot of families. And so I founded Clay Academics in 2020, and we've been up and running. We moved into a physical brick and mortar in 2022, and we've served about 200, 300 kids. But we served a lot of kids. I've served thousands of kids over the years. So I'm excited to do this work and help our students here in Oklahoma and honestly beyond. I do work full time as well. I didn't even talk about that, but I am the managing director for a nonprofit where I get the opportunity to work with schools across the country to start tutoring programs within their schools. And so I currently support schools here in Oklahoma, of course, and then in Philadelphia, Louisiana, South Dakota, and Twin Cities. So excited to do this work and help students close gaps.
Definitely. And that's why when you said just Oklahoma, I was like, what are you talking about? You're always traveling for work. You just have such a vast background. And sometimes I think that people don't realize how much teachers and educators actually put forth into their profession and to further that education and experiences, and how much there's a deep dive into how to actually help children flourish in this school setting. I think sometimes people are just like, oh, teacher, they don't do. I'm like, they do a lot, guys. They do a lot to make sure that they perfect their craft, just like I do in my profession as well. So I just love having someone like you here so that people can see, yes, there are people perfecting their craft in the education sector. And so that just brings me to my first question for you. So this is Raising Resilient Minds podcast. And so when you think of the word resilience, what does that bring to mind?
I think about the word resilience. I think about overcoming challenges, right? Like the first thing, we all face challenges every day. And I think in my work, I work with students who face academic challenges. And my work is to provide them with the tools and the resources they need to be able to overcome those challenges. And so it's like helping individuals and helping students when they face these challenges, being able to quickly bounce back, to quickly recover. Sometimes they say pull up your bootstraps, but students who have the tools and resources and the ability to be able to overcome challenges when they're faced with them, because we're all going to face challenges, but how we overcome them, the things that we do, and how quickly, I think that's important, how quickly we bounce back from them, that we don't kind of stay in those spaces with those challenges, but we know that we have the ability to overcome them within ourselves and with the support of our community and the resources. So yeah, I think being resilient is really just the ability to be able to overcome challenges.
Definitely. I love that response. Like I always tell people, there's no right or wrong answer, right? It's what does that mean to you? And I think that is an excellent description, especially when it comes to education. So that makes me just kind of curious. Within the African American community, and I will say lots of other minorities, often we don't seek out tutoring. And sometimes there are some barriers to that, just cultural things, right? So how do you encounter some of those families, or when you're going to the schools or teaching other educators of how to get children and families on board with tutoring? How do you approach that?
I think one starts with a relationship, like having a relationship with the schools, being present in the community, being someone that they trust and that they know is there to support them and their children. I've worked in school systems a lot, and so I've had the opportunity to build a lot of relationships and a lot of trust. And so if people know, like, and trust you, then they'll believe what you're saying. And so when we're as educators talking to parents and we're saying your child's having some struggles, your child has some gaps here, or maybe the parents are at home and they're not quite sure what to do, they see their child struggling. If they know there's somebody in their corner who they can know, like, and trust, they're more willing to go to that person or believe that they're going to support their children. I've had parents come to me after they've exhausted tons of resources. They went to try to work with the school, they try to do it themselves, and they're like, okay. And some of them don't have trust, like maybe they had a bad experience in school, and so they don't trust educators. And so I'm like, I have an open door policy. I'm like, you can come in at any time and see the work that myself and my tutors are doing. I don't turn any families away. My tutoring is affordable. And so I have my prices established, but I also say, what can you afford? Because my passion is to ensure that every child has what they need. And so when they see that and they feel that, they're like, this is somebody I know that I can trust. And then it's a partnership, right? I'm not doing this by myself. We're doing this together. And so I tell the parents, there's work I'm going to do, but there's also work I need you to do at home. And so when they see that I'm here to support the whole family in helping their children, then we're able to work as a team in a partnership. And so I think the number one thing is trust, like developing their trust so that they do believe that you are there to genuinely help their children. And then helping them to understand, the ones who may not understand that their children do have academic challenges, helping them to understand where their child should be and where their child is at, but doing that in a way in which you're providing a solution for them, right? So I think that's like
Yes.
super important.
That is one of, and sometimes it becomes difficult because I think there's just a stigma on we're fine, nothing's wrong, everything's great. And I love what you were saying about building the trust and things. The same thing I have to do as a physician, right? I have to build that trust, that relationship, and work and partner with families, or I'll get nowhere, right? But one of the things, I actually have a few patients who go to Clay Academics, and they'll tell me some of the things that they're doing and working on. And I try to do my best to praise them for being willing to get extra help so that they don't struggle in the classroom, because I think it's really important for others in the community to reinforce that for those children. If they say, oh, I have tutoring and I can't go to practice, or I'm going to be late to practice, I hope the coaches say, you know what? I'm glad you're going to tutoring. I'll see you at practice. Just reinforcing that you don't have to struggle, and we all process things differently. And I know at one point I was actually a tutor. I don't even know if you know that. So I used to tutor for a company when I was in medical school, and I had to train on how to tutor and had all those tools and things like that. And it was just so amazing to see how different each child processed and how I had to change how I approached them. And there was even one time where I realized I couldn't deliver for this child. Like, I couldn't fully understand their processing. So I called in another tutor who completely partnered with him and was able to assist them with their pre-calculus, right? So it's already a difficult topic, but you got to be able to explain it in a manner that they understand. And so I remind my families that getting tutoring isn't failure. Getting tutoring is just like getting a cast when you have a broken bone, right? It's giving you that foundation and that structure and that strength that you need so that now we're building stronger and stronger foundations, right? So that we're able to succeed. And I know that I personally had tutoring in high school. I had tutoring for especially my calculus and my pre-cal, because those are just difficult subjects. And because of my amazing tutor, I killed the ACT and SAT. And I tell people all the time, I'm very proud of that. And I still
Yeah,
talk to my
yeah,
tutor to this day.
I love it. See, you had that
Yeah.
relationship with your tutor as well. Like you still talk to them to this day. So they were more than just a tutor. They were like a mentor, like somebody who
Yeah.
you, again, trusted. So that's good. When you
Yes. And
talked
it's,
about like,
you see, you talk about, what was that?
when you talked about like education shaping and molding it to like to fit the needs of the child. So Clay Academics, most people think is named after me. And it is a little bit, right? Clay, my last name is Clay. But it's actually a play on Clay Academics shaping and molding education to fit the needs of each and every individual child. And that's what we
I
do.
like
So
it.
I'm glad you said that.
I like it. And I did not know that. So I appreciate that. It even helps me more. And it's so, and that's so important for other people who are tutors or whatever you do, is that we make sure that's not, there's not one size fits all. And I do know that it's difficult as a teacher. You can't, there's 24 students in the room. You just have to teach. And so that's why
Mhm.
tutoring is so important for that molding and shaping into helping them do understand it a lot better. Because I tell people all the time, when I was in college, there were so many professors who I was just like, I don't get this at all. Like I'm more of a visual learner. And so when
Mhm.
people, it's like Charlie Brown's mom sometimes for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
We
like,
have different
just
learning styles. Yeah, we all have different learning styles. And so it's like tapping into that individual child's learning style, their strengths, how they learn best, and adjust
yes.
accordingly. Absolutely.
Definitely. And so I know that you've been in education a really long time. And then you decided, I know you've also been working a really long time on this book, right? Braden and the Big Test. And I think it's such one, the illustrations are wonderful. So definitely grabs the attention of other people. But what made you want to write a book?
So, as I said, I was a teacher for many years in Texas. And when I was teaching in Texas, they came out with what's called a third grade reading retention law. And when that test came out, I saw a huge shift in our third grade teachers, our third grade students, and our parents. It was like a level of stress. And that third grade law says that students that are not reading on grade level by third grade are not promoted. So they have to take this end of year reading test. And if they're not reading on grade level, they're automatically held back. It's a lot of pressure for teachers, educators, and parents. And so when we seeing the students experience that is what kind of birthed the story of Braden and the Big Test. It is based on a third grader, and not just one third grader, but like hundreds of third graders that I see and continue to see with reading. Third grade is a pivotal year. It's a transitional year when students go from reading to learn to learning to read. A lot of parents don't know that and how important it is for our students to be reading at grade level by third grade. And so Braden and the Big Test is a book that touches on the importance of reading on third grade level by the end of third grade, the importance of how you can support your students when they take big tests or face other challenges. It touches on test anxiety because when you're putting this kind of pressure on children at such a young age, them being able to understand how to handle that is a lot for them. Like their brains aren't fully developed and they're able to. And so it touches on all these different things within that book. And it's all based on that experience when that law passed many years ago in Texas, and it's coming to fruition across many states today. Still, even
Yes.
Oklahoma, we just developed it in Oklahoma, the Reading Sufficiency Act, and last year they changed it to the Strong Reader Act, and that's really what it is. Students have to be reading on grade level by third grade. So
And I'll be
there's a
honest
lot.
with you, my third graders are very anxious when they come, that they can't sleep. Some of them can't eat. You see all this nervousness because all I have to take this test. The test. If I don't pass the test, I don't go to the next grade. And so, kind of, what are some things as an educator do you see and have you seen in the classroom this test anxiety?
So it can present itself in many different ways. One way that I commonly see it is students become sick, right? They're like, my tummy hurts because they don't know how they're jittery. They have butterflies in their tummy, or they're sweating, or their hands are like clammy. And so that's one of the things like I kind of note right away. Maybe they get really quiet when it's time to take a test, right? They don't want to say a lot, or maybe they act out. A lot of kids will act out and will think they're having behavior issues, or they avoid it and they don't want to do it at all, right? They like, I don't want to take the test. And so I've seen so many different things that kids exhibit that oftentimes get mislabeled when they really are test anxiety. That's some of the things I see. And so I try to, when I'm talking to educators, I say, and they say they're really frustrated when it comes to testing because the students are acting out. Other students are, they all have to go to the nurse's office, right? Because they're trying to avoid it. And I say, that's test anxiety. And so you have to address it. You have to talk about it. You have to get them to feel comfortable and know it's okay to have those emotions. And then I just try to equip them, the educators and the parents, with the tools to help their students deal with those different emotions that they're feeling and experiencing.
Do you have any particular tool that you prefer to share with families regarding testing? I mean, obviously, you have the book, but any
Yeah.
outside resources or things that you like to share with them?
Yeah, there's really like not specific outside resources. I'm a very like I'm going to give you something that you can take and walk away and implement right away kind of person. And so I give parents like 5 tips. I tell them I give educators the same 5 tips. And it's one like preparation. Like you got to prepare. You got to help your kids study. And for little ones, it's reading every night, getting them comfortable with reading and getting them to feel confident in their abilities to read. If they're maybe reviewing old test notes, reviewing homework, talking to your child's teacher and asking them what can you do at home to support them. And then for educators, again, same thing, preparation. We do these at Clay Academics. In March, we stop all of our instruction and we do what's called study skills. and we go over all the skills for that current year, and we embed test taking tips for them. And so they're learning how to skim and how to scan and how to do process of elimination and all these critical test taking skills that they need during that time. And so I provide my families and educators with those. And then once they're prepared and it's ready, it's time to get ready to take the test, make sure they get a good night's rest, right? Make sure they're eating healthy, eating a healthy breakfast, not just on test day, but they should be eating a healthy breakfast every day, right? We know like that rest fuels the brain, right? Gets us ready
Right. You got to get
to
proper
learn.
fuel.
Yes. And so then when it comes time to take the test, as educators, make sure they're calm, they're relaxed. When my kids took tests, I would play classical music and we would do meditation. We would and they knew it was time to relax and breathe in and breathe out. And we're going to take this test and we're going to rock out. And then I would tell them, take your time. Focus on one question at a time. You may have a test booklet or you may have a tablet that has 30 questions on it. It's okay. We're going to focus on one question at a time. That's all. We're going to focus on that. We're going to take our time and we're going to try our best. And then the last one is so important is positive self-talk and affirmation from others. They have to know that we will believe in them and we see them as capable, and they have to believe in themselves and see themselves as capable. And so it's like, you're going to do great. I believe in you. Sharing time when they did great so they can see that this is real. Lots of great job, but be very specific when you're giving that positive praise, and then encourage them to give self praise to themselves as well, believe in themselves and think I can do this. And all of these are weaved in Braden in the big test. Everything I just shared is weaved into the storyline of the test, and so of the book. And so Braden, his mom helps him prepare and study. His teacher stops class, and they all go through what's called test prep for the few weeks before test starts. And then he eats a healthy breakfast and gets a good night's rest before he takes the test. And his teacher tells him to focus on one question at a time. All of these are woven in, but also his emotions are in this story. Him feeling nervous and anxious and scared, and there's three characters in the story. And so Braden he's the smart one. He's smart, but he has some challenges, right? He has a hard time remembering things and he has a lot of self-doubt. And then he has a friend named Sophia who's very smart and everything just comes easy for her, right? We have those students that don't even have to study. And then he has his friend Junior, who all he cares about is football, right? And so he doesn't really work hard. He's kind of a C student and just manages to get by. I wanted characters that each student can kind of see in themselves. And maybe you're a Junior or you're a Sophia, or maybe you're a Braden. And they're all very diverse characters as well. I think it's important for students to see
Yes,
characters who look
definitely.
like them. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you were able to create this book because it's relatable for the children, teachers, parents, everyone. And so it gives them an opportunity to see into the child's world a little bit because I think that we often think that children don't really have these kind of issues or that they can just kind of brush it to the side because they're young. Like those are adult things. No, these things start very young. And I love that you're exposing people to that concept of test anxiety because when you actually are able to use those amazing tools, those 5 steps that you mentioned, and in third grade for that first test, it's for every test. It goes all the way through life.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
when I have patients who have the test anxiety, I implement a few other things that are for those who are a little bit more extreme, right? Who I've had people who throw up in the test, all
Mm-hmm.
types of things, right? So we have to
Mm-hmm.
do a little bit more for some of those children who kind of have a little bit of underlying anxiety all the time, right? So true
Yeah.
anxiety disorders with a little bit of that. But it's so key that the positive affirmations and believing in the children and not, I see so many parents who well, make sure you pass that test, girl, because if you don't pass that test, and I'm like, don't do that. We
Yes.
can't do that. Instead, we change our language, as you said. When you pass that test, we're gonna go to the movies. Don't worry
Mm-hmm.
about it. Just do your best. Take your time, girl. You got this.
Yes.
And so I think that we have to, as parents, I know we mean well because we want to make sure they realize the seriousness of it, but we don't realize that children, they become more anxious, just like any of us when it's time to perform. I use this for sports anxiety. I see a lot of players who
Mm-hmm.
have just plain performance anxiety. When you're on that big stage, even if it's the chair, you feel
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
you're under a lot of pressure. And especially if you don't feel prepared,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you don't have the fuel, you're not going to be able to perform. Same concept. It kind of goes
Yeah.
across all walks of life for many of these children. And so it's important. I actually have a really close friend who was kind of like Sophia. Did well,
Mm-hmm.
everything came easy. until medical school, right? Applying to
Hmm.
medical school. Not even medical school yet. 4.0
Wow.
college student. Okay? Then couldn't take past the MCAT. Struggled. Why? And I kept saying, maybe you should get checked out.
Mhm.
Finally, after failing it 3 times, when found out it's test anxiety, started to do the work and all the things needed for that, came back, did very well. Went on to our next exams that we have because we have too many. These big exams that cost us a lot of money. So it's more, a little bit more pressure when you're paying $1,500 for every test,
Mhm.
right? Killed it. Got the second highest score in her entire class.
What?
Exactly. This person actually almost like peed on themselves during a test because their anxiety was that bad. I know personally, I used
It's
to have a
real.
little test anxiety, and I never get. I would get headaches, migraines, so I could barely even finish the test. And worked on my stuff as well, and realized I was holding my breath. And when you hold
Mm.
your breath, your brain doesn't get oxygen,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
that's why the
Yeah.
deep breathing is so important because reminding yourself to breathe is so important because you often can develop a headache. And so witnessing that through a close friend and seeing the drastic change. And I'm not going to say their profession because it might give away who they are, but this is say they make way more money than I do at this point and are all over TV and doing lots of big things. And
Wow.
so I just want to make sure that so many of these children realize that even if you struggle right now, it's temporary. And
Yes.
getting the tools that you need to set you up for success is really important. And so parents have to understand that every step of the way, even if you have that Sophia, right?
Hmm.
Sophia may need some
Hmm.
help. And it may be
Hmm.
high school.
Hmm.
That was
Absolutely.
me. It came in high school. And I was like, Mom, I'm not understanding this pre-calculus. And so they realized, oh, okay, we have to help you with some of that. But because I was so prepared for everything, I was able to do well. But I also have parents who are educators. So I benefited from that experience. So, what are some things that when you encounter some of your students who just really struggle, like, and they're just you're trying to pour into them and things like that, but they're just like, I really just can't do this, Miss Clay. Like, what is your motivation for them?
I just hired a new tutor, and she asked me a similar question. She was like, what if a kid just refuses to work? And I said, I've been in education for 20 plus years and had Clay Academics for 5 years. And I can count on one hand the number of students that did not want to work for me. Like, I created an environment in which every student wants to work. Every student wants to be successful. When they come and take their initial diagnostic assessment, they're eager and excited to come back. And it starts with one, me seeing and believing in them, right? So as soon as they walk in, I'm greeting them by their name. I do what's called an entrance inventory, and it's a way for me to get to know them. I'm asking them, what's your favorite food? What do you like to do for fun? We're building that relationship from day one. If we're going to, I want you to show me what you know when we're going to take this assessment. Show me what you know. It's not a test. I want to see what you know. And whatever you don't know, guess what? It's my job to teach it to you. There's no pressure here, right? It's a test, but they don't feel like it's a test. And they know there's someone here who's going to help them if they can't do it. And so incentives are super. We all work for money, right? So incentives are big. So my kids get incentives. We have a motivation station at the center. And so students who come in and work hard, who try their best, who have a positive attitude, if they arrive early, they get extra tickets. If they stay late and finish an assignment, they get extra tickets. And so there's all these motivational things in place for them. But then they actually track their own progress. They know we have a conversation where you're starting and where we're going, and they get to track their progress along the way. They get to have those incremental incentives and awards and to know that I'm being successful every step of the way. And so if I come in every day when I come into Clay Academics, I know I'm going to make progress towards my goal. I'm going to be able to leave and tell my mom I completed these 4 skills. Like, that's what it's about. And so I don't have to work hard to motivate my students because the way our system is set up to serve for motivation from start to end.
Well, how do we clone you into a robot? No. No, and I know
I'll get
you've
some
put in a
blood.
lot of work. You've done a lot
I
of
have,
training. You've
yeah.
done a lot to perfect your craft, right? And so I'm joking, but the reality is that I'm glad that you work for a nonprofit to help other teachers and to educate them, especially newer ones, Because right now it is a little hard to teach, right? We live in a very different climate and it is very different. And so it's important that they have that type of support. And so I know we're not necessarily signing people up for that nonprofit or anything like that, but I do want people to, even if you're not in Oklahoma, to definitely get Braden in the big test, implement that. But what are some other ways if people are interested in learning more from you, or even some of the trainings that you do across the country? How's the best way to contact you?
I would say go to my website, Clay Academics. You can Google it. Clay, I don't know my specific website off the top of my head. I should probably know that. But you can Google Clay Academics. It's going to take you to my website or my Facebook page. I have a Facebook page and I provide resources and tips and strategies on that Facebook page. But going to my website has all my contact information. It has my phone number and my email. And if you want to come visit Clay Academics, our address is on there as well. And so that will be the first way for people to contact me. And then you can look up Braden and the Big Test as well. It's going to take you to my contact information and websites where you can purchase a book if you'd like to support that way as well.
Yes, and I definitely encourage, if you are an educator, you need to have this book. You need to read it to your class. You need to share with your friends, because as a pediatrician who often is having to take care of these children when we've let this dwell on and on, and now I'm having to step in, I prefer not to. So if we can get them prepared, teaching them, especially those 5 tips that Ms. Clay just taught us, I think is very important. So at some point, we all have to realize that educating our children is still a community affair. It's not just relying on a teacher in the classroom. We as parents have to be involved, administrators, the church members, whomever, okay? It's the coaches, everyone. It's a group effort. And don't be afraid to recommend tutoring for a child who you feel like may need it, or any child. They can always do an assessment. Everyone can always improve. And so it's very important that we kind of burn that stigma that tutoring is for people who just, I don't know, are failing, right? We want to prevent them from even getting to that point and intervene quite early, and also just paying attention to the signs and symptoms of possible test anxiety that your class, the signs and symptoms of test anxiety that your students may be having, or as parents paying attention to that as well, especially even if they sit down for homework. Okay. And noticing those things, and definitely you speak to your teacher, you can speak to your pediatrician and kind of review some of those things. Any last final words?
I do want to share. So I wrote Braden and the Big Test. It's a book that I want parents and children to read together. Okay. It talks about a very important topic. And so I just want to emphasize that. And then at the end of each chapter, there are comprehension questions to help students digest what they're reading along the way. And so that's what I just want to leave parents with, is like, don't just hand a book to your child, but sit down with your child, read the book together, have conversations about Braden's feelings and some of their feelings that they may connect with. And so that's what I would like to leave with.
Thank you so much for being here. So this is Raising Resilient Minds, and I'm Dr. Jihan. If you'd like to work with me, you can reach me at drjihan.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.